Correct.
So first, I want to thank you all for coming out and staying through to the end of the day. I really want to thank Mary Delaney for putting on such an amazing event and inviting me to speak. I am honored and super, super excited to be presenting to you Arizona's largest gardening club. Right? Isn't that an amazing great adventure? We're ready to grow and harvest. You're like, what? I'm just kidding. But Mary did say we reap what we sow, right? So we'll be talking about this, and it all makes sense why I have a gardening joke later. I'm Veronica Campbell. I've been a physical therapist for over 20 years. I specialize in the physical, right? The body. I specialize in a type of hands-on therapy called visceral manipulation, vascular manipulation, and neural manipulation. So it's a manual therapy working with the fascial layers of the body. I also specialize in gut health and nutrition. So this journey this afternoon will be kind of connecting all of these pieces for you. And so over the last 10 years, I've tried to blend traditional physical therapy with complementary medicine. So blending these worlds. And what I started to realize when I was blending these worlds is that how much the emotional pain state can plant itself in the physical body. How much our emotions can be in ourselves. You've heard this through the day. We can take that emotional state and create physical pain, physical illness, tension, right? Our mind can do this. Our emotions can do this. We're connected, mind, body, spirit. And it's through the years of treating really complex patients that I started to recognize how much their physical pain could be related to their emotional pain. My patients taught me. They taught me that, okay, I have this physical ache and pain in my back, and I'd be treating them for a period of time, and then something greater emotionally would happen, and their pain would exacerbate or flare up. Or while I was working on them, they would start talking about the death of their spouse or something, and I would feel their body completely tighten up under my hand. Through my education further, we learn in the work that I do to start to feel on the body physical tension, and then how emotional tension and problems can manifest off the body. And so there's ways to start to feel, and as I work on people, you can start to feel this is physical tension, now it's going into the nervous system, now there's part of an emotional piece. Doing this for years, spending hours with my hands on people, have taught me how to start to feel this and start to recognize. So how does this relate to manifesting? Well, what I found in my patients was the better they started to feel physically, and the more we addressed the mind, body, and spirit connections, the more their lives would start to change. They would not only physically feel better, but they'd come back and their relationships would improve. Their work life would improve. They were starting to have the life they wanted. And so I started to recognize how much all of this interconnects and how we need to look at things in a holistic manner. Just like blending I was doing in the clinic, we need to blend the mind, body, and spirit. And so that's what I want to do, is talk about the body and the physical a little bit more, like what Tara was talking about. Go into some of that into a little bit deeper dive. Some of this is theories and things that we talk about channeling, and I used to think, I don't channel. And now I recognize, like, no, okay, this whole part of this was channeled, and the whole second part of what I'm going to talk about today was channeled on a run. And I'm like, oh, I do channel. You know, I have my own head doubts of like, am I really getting the right clues? Am I really sharing what I need to share? And so I'm trying to trust the process myself. And so the things I'm sharing with you today are lessons I've learned, things I've learned. And like Tara said, listen to them. If you hear them over and over through the day, maybe they have significance. If it feels like truth to you, it has significance. Pay attention to those things. Those are the important things for you and what you need in your life. And it's going to be different for all of us. Every single one of you in here is going to hear a different story. That's just how it is. So listen to your story and find your truth as I talk today. What was I going to say? Earlier, when I'm talking about the emotional pain states, we know things like Louise Hay, right? Many of you have heard of her. So those are the things that I start to see, like the patient that had the spouse die, and she was talking about her hip would tighten up. Louise Hay, we have all these guidelines, all these resources that Mary gave you that show you where your emotions might plant in your body. I'm going to be giving you some tools later for you to start to clue into that and feel that. And if you still need help and you're still having problems with physical pain, emotional pain, then find practitioners that can help you too. So there's resources out there. So I'll be talking about all of that. The first part of what I'm going to talk about is more like a story. And so if you have questions, please try to hold your questions to the end of this part. Write them down, because I might answer them as I go. Okay? All right. So let's start first. I want to make sure that you all have a subscription to Netflix or Amazon Prime, because we're about to go channel surfing. We're going to go through the Anatomy Channel, we're going to go through the Science Channel, of course Animal Planet, and then we're going to end with the Gardening Network. Okay, so your mind is going to go through a trip here with me. And hopefully all these different things that I talk about will help you start to understand your physical body, how it relates to your emotional, your spiritual body, so that you can figure out clues of those inner voices and inside feelings for you to figure out what you need to do to manifest the life that you want. Okay? So let's switch our attention now to the Anatomy Channel. So we're going to start there. And what I want you to think about is you hear, right now you're listening, right? You hear a voice inside your head. You're processing information, right? Our body has a way to communicate with our brain and our brain with our body. Most of that is through your nervous system. So we think about, okay, our nerves. Our nerves, like the sciatic nerve. Our nerves in our body are to help move us, right? So if I want to pick up this cup of water and drink, which I need a sip, everything I just did required nerves. Nerves for me to think about moving my arm, think about that, think about drinking and swallowing. But once I get that swallow down, I don't really have to think about it anymore, right? So we have all these voluntary parts of our nervous system, and then we have a more automated part. I don't think, okay, water, keep going, right? No, it becomes automated. We don't have to think about blinking, about breathing, about digesting. Thank goodness, because I know I would forget a few of those at some point during the day, and that would be detrimental to my health. So when we get into that autonomic part of the nervous system, or automated, we have two parts. I like to think of it as a gas pedal and a brake, right? We can speed things up and slow things down. Neither is good nor bad, right? Your gas pedal isn't bad. They're both necessary, but they need to be in balance. So let's first talk about the gas pedal. The gas pedal is called the sympathetic nervous system. That is the part of your nervous system that, in times of danger or stress, gets turned on, right? It's our fight or flight. You've heard of fight or flight mode? Many of us in today's society are living in a state of fight or flight. You put the news on, you're living in a state of fight or flight, right? What else creates a state of fight or flight? What things trigger you? What things pop in your mind? What things are doing that? Give me some ideas.
The news.
The news.
Your mortgage payment.
Pardon?
Your mortgage payment.
Your mortgage payment. Oh, it's so funny. I have this mortgage payment. Yes, that would do it. I have a microphone on and not using. This would be easier. Okay, now I don't have to project. Yes, what else?
Driving on the city streets here.
Driving on the streets. Right. So all of these things are forms of stress. So historically, fight or flight mode was great if you needed to get away from a bear or a tiger, right? Those were big, obvious stressors. Our heart rate increased, our blood rate increased, our blood shunted to our extremities so we could run away. But if we stay in that state all the time, it can be detrimental to health. So little stresses can all add up. The news, the traffic, your boss, work situations, relationships, worrying about your kids, all those things can create fight or flight mode. And our engine gets stuck revving constantly. What else? Tara was talking about it. The environment, the plastics, the toxins, the pathogens, all of these things are stressors to our system. Our system perceives it as a stress. And so we get stuck in this. And our adrenals are working hard, our cortisol system's amped, we start to create diseases like autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. So all of these things are related to being stuck in a constant state of stress. So what are we seeing a trend of? All of you are here because you're searching for answers of how to take better care of yourself, how to feel different, how to vibrate different, how to manifest your life, right? We're seeing that trend with yoga, with qigong, tai chi, meditation, mindfulness. There's this ripple of awareness that we're all stuck in this state and that we want something different, right?
Yes.
Right? So the other part of the system is called the brakes, right? And that's your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, that's the rest and digest. Rest, preparing ourselves for sleep. That's when we heal. Digest, getting nutrients to replenish our body and rebuild. So the rest and digest is really critical for the health of our body. And much of that system is made up of the vagus nerve. Anybody in here heard of the vagus nerve? Yes. The vagus nerve is not like Las Vegas. Las Vegas is an adult playground of fight-or-flight mode. You got bells, you got whistles, you got alcohol, you got did I win, did I lose, right? You're in this state of craziness. Well, the vagus nerve itself is more like the antidote to Las Vegas. Right? So it is the part of the system that slows things down. Now we say the vagus nerve. So do we have one vagus nerve? Don't know. There's actually two. So two vagus nerves. And you think like a nerve is like a long, like a power cord. Well, the vagus nerve is actually a lot of branches. So there's two branches, main branches going down, and then they have a tremendous amount of branches coming off, kind of like tree roots grow to each organ, to each part of us. And you remember, some of you are old enough to remember, when you go behind your TV and the VCR and the stereo and everything's plugged in and there's all these cords? It's kind of like that in here. There's so many nerves inside us you can't even believe. And they're all communicating with our brain and body all the time to keep us functioning in the most ideal way we can. So with that vagus nerve, I'd just like you to kind of move for a minute, and we're going to take a little journey. In your booklets, there's a little picture. It's a colored picture. On the left side of the picture is an anatomy image, and on the right side are chakras. So we're first going to kind of take a look at the anatomy image on the left. And so when you're looking at that image, I have it here. When we're talking about the fight or flight nerves, or the sympathetic chain, that's the wider piece down the side that looks much like a rope ladder. Okay? And then in front of it, all around the esophagus and the aorta, looks like kind of mesh wrapping around. Those are branches of the vagus nerve. So they run together and they communicate with each other. Okay? So when you come up to your head and you come to your hairline, so just bring your hands, do this with me, so you feel where your vagus nerve is. Just below your hairline, you can come out to your ears, you feel the bone of your skull, and there's a little divot or a dip right in there. That's about where the vagus nerve comes out, a right and a left. It then comes down behind your neck and has branches that communicate with your vocal cords, your larynx. It continues down between the lungs and the heart and has a huge mesh of branches to the heart where it communicates with the sympathetic chain at the same time. Continues down. The left vagus nerve stops for the most part at the stomach and the spleen. It has a little bit of talk with the gallbladder and liver, and a little bit with the pancreas. And the right vagus nerve continues on with the liver, and then all of the small intestines and most of the large intestines. Okay? So now you know the path of the vagus nerve and the sympathetic chain. What's really interesting to me, so when Tara was talking about ask questions, wonder why, be curious. I'm always curious. So I was looking at that and I thought, that's where the plexi, where they all communicate with each other, the gas pedal and the brake are talking to each other, all line up with the chakras. Isn't that interesting? So for thousands of years, us humans have had a sense that these chakras are, if they're imbalanced or off or feel energetically too strong or too weak, that there's something wrong. And they correlate with our anatomy and with our nervous system and with what's going on. And so it's amazing how we've been in tune with this before we even knew, it's related possibly to our nerves and to our brain and body communicating. So I thought that was fascinating. I always like how things kind of start to correlate and align. So then, if we're knowing how they communicate with each other, what's interesting, that gets too close, I get loud. Sorry. What's interesting to me is more information about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, you think of it going from the brain and telling the gut what to do, right? Only 20% of the fibers go from the brain to the gut to tell it what to do. What does that mean? 80% of the fibers are gathering information and telling the brain what to do. Holy moly. This is profound to me. That means this guy or this girl is not so much in charge. It's much more like delegating back. Speed up, slow down. The gut, and the vagus nerve, is influencing the brain that much. And there's a whole new area of research in looking at this second brain called the enteric nervous system. influencing our whole body and what that has. So the vagus nerve, they found in invertebrates, if they cut the vagus nerve, that this whole second brain can keep functioning on its own. So it's its own brain, but so much of it influences our primary brain. So when we think about things like gut intuition, where are those thoughts coming from? Where are those feelings coming from? Think about those expressions. Gut intuition, gut-wrenching pain. I had butterflies in my stomach. I was so choked up. I was so scared I couldn't scream. There's a lump in my throat. It correlates where the chakras are, and it correlates where these nerves communicate. So these are the things as I work with my patients and look at the anatomy and start to go, these things start to correlate. This is really interesting, right? So what I want to talk about more will be the gut itself. But before we go into that, I think it's really useful for you to know your own anatomy. So we're going to do a little palpation lab of ourselves. So just to give yourself a stretch, go ahead and stand up. Because if you have illness or problems or pain, it's nice to know where it might be coming from. So hopefully you can stagger so you can see me. So take your pinky fingers and pat the bottom of your rib cage and just line them up with that. And then lay your hands against your rib cage. So under your right hand is your liver. It's under the ribs. Under your left hand is much of the stomach. If you slide your left hand back a little bit, there's your spleen. Slide it forward again, there's your stomach. Just below and behind the stomach is your pancreas. Under your right hand is the liver, and just below it, down the midline, is the gallbladder. Right curled underneath, tucked underneath there. So if you take your hands now and lift your palms so that they're facing the floor, just below the breast there, about at that level, is your diaphragm. Above that are your lungs. And in the middle is your heart. So lay your hands back down. So now, if you slide your hands down like you're going to put your hands into your pockets in the front, under your right hand is your cecum and your ascending colon. It goes across, and then under your left hand is your descending colon and your sigmoid. And if you bring your hands just a little bit to midline and deep to the back wall are your kidneys. Then below into the pelvic area, you feel your pubic bone. Behind that is the bladder, the uterus or prostate, and then deep to that is the rectum. Okay, go ahead and have a seat. If you like that and you're like, I want to see that again or hear that again, I'll give you the resource at the end. I did make a video of that. It's on YouTube, as well as a video talking about how our organs can refer pain into our body. So if that's something that you're interested in, there's 2 different videos I'll give you the resources for. I made this so that people can learn. I'm all about paying it forward. So when she was talking about not fixing people, I really see myself as a servant or a guide. I tell people I'm a flashlight to shine things on for you to notice and for you to work with, and try to give you tools to take care of yourself. Sometimes you need a guide a little bit more, sometimes you need a little less. So that's where I feel like my role is. So now that we're done with the anatomy channel, we're going to switch channels to the science channel. So science, we get to talk about microbes, right? So when I talk about microbes, or the microbiome, or bacteria, I'm also including viruses and funguses, but they call the collective piece of it the microbiome, okay? So did you know, as you're sitting here, that we are 90% microbial cells? All the cells in your body, if you took them and all counted them out, 90% of them are microbial cells. There's trillions of them. Lamont was talking about how they're in the dirt, how they're on the plants. They are us, okay? 10% human cells, 90% microbial cells. Now our human cells are much bigger, so they make up more of our mass. But when you look at the count, we are microbes. So we say, we're humans, right? And then if you're a little more spiritual, you're like, well, we're a soul having a human experience. I think we're a soul having a human microbial experience, right? And having a symbiotic relationship. So, where are those microbes? Those microbes are all over us. They're in your eyelashes, they're in your hair. There's over 200 species in your mouth. Then as you go down, your stomach's relatively sterile. And you go further down and it becomes more and more different varieties and number of gut microbes. So that the large intestine has trillions, and it has, in the adult human, we have like 500 to 1,000 different species in our large colon. That's in the US. So I read some research, and they were talking about the US and the microbiome versus indigenous people. And so in the US we had 500 to 1,000, and in indigenous they had 1,600 to 1,800 different microbes. So a lot more. And then they looked at the type of microbes, and the ones in the US, they had to do with breaking down simple sugars. And the ones in the indigenous people were to break down plant fibers. So what you eat influences your gut microbiome. So it starts to make you think about where we live, what we do, what we eat. When we travel, when we get food poisoning because we ate something different, we don't have the gut flora maybe to break it down. Right? So why? Why do we have all these bacteria? What do they do? Obviously, they help us break down food. I just gave you that clue. What else do they do? They help us absorb nutrients? Yes, please.
They help your immune system.
They help your immune system. Very good. Lamont?
They produce different chemicals and enzymes that our bodies can't.
Yep.
We need them.
So we need them. So they help us break down food. They help us make hormones and neurotransmitters. They help us digest vitamins and minerals. Like she said, they're actually responsible to help the cell wall of our intestines stay intact so we don't get leaky gut, to help our immune system. Where is our immune system? We know our respiratory system, our lungs. Our circulatory system, our arteries. Where's our immune system?
In our gut, 80%.
In our gut. So we have our spleen, our thymus. We have our lymph nodes and our bone marrow. But 70 to 80% of your immune system is in and around your gut. It's in what's called GALT, gut-associated lymph tissue. It's the tissue around your gut. It's where we need to fend things off. Why? Why is 70 to 80% of our immune system here? Well, from mouth to anus is really still outside of us. Anything that goes through has to be broken down and absorbed to get inside of us. And so where are we going to run into most of the offending things that come into our lives, right? Our mouth. We eat something bad. Or the air. We breathe it. Our mucosa collects it. It goes down the back of our throat for postnasal drip. And we swallow all those bacteria, funguses, and viruses, and everything else, and toxins. And so our gut has to defend itself. So our immune system is here. So it starts to make you look at things a little differently in the gut. You know the question? And she's just...
I'm completely hanging on every word.
Oh, perfect. I know, I'm looking at him, I'm like, wait, did I lose him or there? You're germaphobes, I know.
Right, we're germaphobes, so I'm finding a little lightness to our brains.
No worries. So we're going to go into that. There's saving grace, I promise. So here we are, our immune system has to fend us off, right? To fight off the guts, or the bad bacteria, the microbes that come into us. So the good thing is, most of us are made up of a lot of good bacteria, and they help fight off the bad bacteria. And then our immune system helps fight it off. Okay, so we have hope with all that. The bacteria in our gut also influence other things besides our health. So they did some research, and they took germ-free mice. And they took human microbiome, or fecal matter, from a lean human and transplanted it into the mouse, and the mouse stayed lean. They took it from an obese human, they put it in the mouse, and the mouse became obese. Wait, they took it from a human that had autism, and they put it in the mouse, and the mouse started showing behavioral neurologic changes. So our gut makes serotonin and dopamine. Our microbiome influences that. Dopamine, mood. Serotonin, precursor to melatonin, critical for the pineal gland. All these things start to connect. So the health of our gut can really influence the health of us. Our weight, our mood, the vitamins and food and nutrients we can absorb, all of that is influenced by this. This is where I go, wow, profound. So if we have good, healthy gut bacteria, ideally we have a better, healthy body, right? Hippocrates said all diseases begin in the gut. There may be some truth to that. I heard a comedian the other day and I cracked up because anytime something's funny, there's some truth to it, right? And she was talking about how when she has an alcoholic binge or a sugar binge or she says something rude, she says, my bad bugs made me do it. But there's some truth to that. If you have a dysbiosis or an imbalance and the bad bacteria and the funguses and the viruses are overgrowing, they can influence you, right? Possibly. So that's what I started to think about is how do our gut microbes influence us? How is this influencing us? How does this affect us? How does our health rely on that? So now we have to switch to the animal planet. All right, so changing channels. You got to keep you on your toes, right? Channel surf. We never sit there very long. Commercial, we're like, come on, come on, come on. We don't have commercials now, right? We stream. Okay, so we're on the animal planet. So I want you to think about a swarm of bees. And a swarm of bees can move hives to follow their queen. They don't talk to each other, they just know they can do it. A flock of birds can navigate continents for survival, right? Army ants can create bridges out of their own bodies to traverse over streams and to keep going. And my favorite are those beautiful, huge schools of fish. They're just swimming in this amazing mass, never colliding, and a barracuda comes through, right? And they dart apart and come right back together. How do they do it? They become part of that bigger consciousness, right? It's swarm theory. They have this ability to be in this giant global consciousness, and they tap into something higher. Well, we have trillions of them. Do you think maybe they are part of our global consciousness? Maybe they are influencing us? Maybe because the vagus nerve is 80% going this way, that what's happening in here influences up here. That's what was profound to me. I don't know if it's true or not. These are just things that I start to connect the dots and wonder, and look at the science of it, and look at the anatomy of it, and say, what if? And what if when your gut bacteria is off, and you have a lot of bad bacteria, and you're craving sugar, and you're like, why do I still need to eat Ben & Jerry's every single night, right? That maybe it's those gut microbes influencing your brain. And the more you can take care of this, and the right bacteria are there, you start making better decisions for you. And you start being able to listen to those inside voices better and manifest the life that you want.
Okay, so if you're eating your pint of Ben & Jerry's, right, that's feeding the bacteria that enjoy that, right? And then as those bacteria expand their population, moving in on the space of the good bacteria, you find the good things like the healing of your arms, and then you keep bacteria voting
Right.
on the vagus nerve to eat the good bacteria. To say, no, you vote for Ben & Jerry's.
Right, right. Exactly. And we're getting maybe signals that aren't good for us. Our good bacteria want to keep us healthy. Our good bacteria that are part of us, we have a symbiotic relationship. We're their host. Okay? But if the bad bacteria overgrow, they're interested in themselves and not the host so much. So these are just theories. Okay? Any other questions on this before we switch into the gardening network? So